Hello everyone. I have got Genevieve Muir here from Connected Parenting. Hello,
Hi.
Jen.
Nice to be here.
We're squished in so nicely here. I cannot believe we actually get to do this live from our brand new studio, which is very exciting for us. And it's been a long time since we've been able to sit side by side to have this chat. Now, I know that this is going to be a much loved topic for those of you that are watching. And first of all, I of course want to thank our wonderful partners from Lego Duplo for making this live happen. Now, you've heard us speak many times before about play, but I feel like for a lot of families, just the idea of fitting something else into our day when we've already got a mile-long list can feel quite daunting and overwhelming. So we talk about how wonderful and beneficial play is, but I would love for you, Jen, to share with us a little bit, how can we include it in our day and not make it that overwhelming task?
I think that is such a good question to lead with, because I know as a mum of four that it can feel so daunting, like we've got to add this extra thing in terms of we know that play is beneficial, and actually the trends have changed in terms of play. We used to think we needed to do flashcards with our kids and train them and teach them, and we wanted to kind of have them educated, and we now know that all of that happens through play. But yet life is busy, and we as parents have a to-do list as well. How do we fit it in? And I think the good news is that we can really simplify some of that pressure and know that play really just happens anywhere. Kids are born to play. It's how they learn. So I think in a way, my approach anyway is almost get out of the way of play. If we have the opportunities there for our kid, it's about the way, and we'll talk about it more today, but it's about the way we set up their toys for play. It's about allowing them to lead with play and knowing that we don't have to do much except for kind of be alongside them, encouraging them, and it's all about the right questions. And just knowing it can happen anywhere. So as a busy mum, I know that I might just bring some toys out and have them in the kitchen right there where I'm cooking. And I can just join in with my child simply by just commenting on what they're doing. And that's one great way to just encourage our kids and be alongside them without taking over too much.
That is such an important thing, and it's funny because I remember years ago someone said to me, I was really worried that I didn't have a playroom, and I was one of those mums, I didn't want everything in the lounge room, so I had all my neat little baskets, and the person at the time said to me, your kids are going to be wherever you are, so don't worry about having a playroom over there, because they're going to, if you're in the kitchen, they will be at your feet or very close by.
So true. I mean, our kids really want to have us with them, and often we really want to encourage independent play, and it's a really important skills for kids to develop that ability to play independently, but they actually need our encouragement to get going with it.
Right.
So it's about supporting them with that independent play by noticing what they're doing and commenting on that a bit and giving them just enough support, not too much, so that they can feel encouraged to keep going and keep playing.
That's really hard actually to do. I know that I remember actually someone in my mother's group, I think it was, says, oh no, but my child actually needs me there all day entertaining with the toys. And I thought, oh gosh, my poor kids, because they just get left to their own devices. I'm usually busy or working and they're just there. But what I have noticed is as they've grown older, they are able to play independently, they entertain each other. And I think that is a wonderful skill that you can give them, to let them just be. But you said something about not overtaking and not leading. So is this, I'd love to know more.
I mean, I wonder if we should start with talking a bit about independent play and how to encourage that and foster that in our kids.
Let's.
We know that play can be used as a vehicle for connection, and we'll probably talk about that next. But I think independent play is so important for our kids, and we want that because, quite frankly, sometimes as parents we need a break. And we know that it's good for our kids to build their creativity and their skills. It's good for them to do it. So how do we foster that? I think one of the things we do is we set up. So you might set up your toys, and we might set up our toys in a particular environment and move them somewhere different on a different day. So you might bring some toys outside, or you might bring the Lego bath set that we've talked about and seen through Kindred. We might bring that into the bath, and then we've got that in the bath for some fantastic different play in the bath. Or we might, like I said before, you might bring some toys into the kitchen, and then you might set that up in a different way. The other thing to really be aware of before you even get going is we want to make sure our kids are fed, that they're not too tired, that they're in a good, are they physically ready to play? Are they well? So we want to set them up for success.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that can really help is to set your play up for possibly your independent play opportunities. You want to set them up for the same time each day. So sometimes having a rhythm, in the same way as we get our sleeps happening at the same time each day,
They know
if you
that
want
that's-
to build independent play, particularly in an eldest child, who I have to say through my work, I know eldest children struggle the most with independent
Do
play.
they?
And I think
Because
it's because
they're-
of our train, like we've trained them a little bit. It's a bit of training, so we've given them so much they're not quite as confident as our
Right.
younger siblings can be.
Yep.
So we want to encourage that by same time each day, setting it up, and then we get down and we connect. So
Okay.
we really want to get in close to our child. We want to join in, not taking over too much and saying, well, we must use a teapot as a teapot. We want to allow our kids to let that teapot be anything they want it to be. And we talk so much about, about how to foster imagination, but it's really about letting our child lead and running with that. And we do that almost by not correcting, not teaching or training. And what we do instead is we notice what they're doing. Oh, wow, you're using your superhero to do this. Well, I'm going to use my superhero to do that. So we join alongside, we are joining in. The best thing I think to know is that we don't need to do this all day. It's about quality over quantity with play. So we want to give our kids 10 minutes of 2 feet in, complete connection.
Yeah. Phones away.
Phones
Just-
away.
Yeah.
No doing jobs on the side. With no
Guilty.
no folding, washing, and really commit to that play and really connect with our child. We might comment on or ask them what they're doing. So we might say, wow, I noticed you're using all of the yellow bricks today. Tell me more about that. Is that your favourite colour, or is that because that's the castle you're building is going to be yellow? So asking those questions that foster their imaginations and their ability to kind of understand what they're doing, all of that makes a difference. So we do that for 10 minutes.
Okay.
Then there's a
That's
final,
easy enough.
I know, but then there's a final step, and this is the bit that can be a little bit harder for most parents. This is where we're flexing our ability to set a boundary and say, okay, so now what's going to happen is I am going to go into the kitchen and I'm going to be doing the washing up or something fun, that we do as parents. And you are going to keep going with your building or with your playing. And that's what we say to our child. And we say it with confidence. This is really, really important that we're confident. We believe in our child's ability, because if we're doubting that they will be able to do it, they will pick up on that.
Yeah.
So we want to do that with confidence. We say, this is what's going to happen next. And then we want to add some humour or some fun to the end of that. So I'm going to go, but I can't wait to see what you build with your Lego. Something like that. I can't wait to see what you achieve. And I'm going to come back and check on you.
Yep. And I love that. And actually, we're talking obviously about Lego Duplo today, is that we've got these little ones at home. And some of your examples where you do talk back and forth with your child, even with the little ones, they do start to understand, don't they?
Yeah. So you can make that, if we have a child who's only 18 months old, and so language is limited, we might be just using less words and more actions, like, wow, that's a big tower. Showing that in our faces and showing our delight and showing, I see what you've been doing.
Which they pick up on and they can see. It's funny, but you always talk about, I guess, not taking over. And I have a little one that goes through speech therapy. If you've followed for a while, you'll know. And they were teaching me about this owling technique. I actually had to watch videos and I had to practice it myself. And I actually found that, yes, there were so many times where I was trying to lead the play, where in fact, if you let them reach for something or do it and make whatever they want out of it, and then you talk to that and then follow along, it motivated them so much more. I know my daughter, she just got so much more out of that play rather than...
So true. And that's similar to the concept of serve and return.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Actually, do we want to talk about serve and return? I think that's a really nice segue, because if you follow Jen's content for a while, you hear her talk about serve and return, and it makes so much sense when you start to understand the context of it.
I mean, I think even from the point our children are very little babies and all the way up, and even with older children, the serve and return and having this sense that what we want to be having in our communication with our kids, particularly around play, is the ability to serve or allow our child to serve first, ideally. And then there's a pause where we're sort of waiting and giving them a beat before we sort of jump straight in with that response where we might take over. And then we return serve.
Yeah.
And how that might sound is just say, you know, and we are talking about Lego Duplo, so just say your child is playing with Lego Duplo and they're having trouble maybe getting 2 bricks apart, maybe something like that, you know, getting 2 bricks apart, or maybe their tower is crashing over and they're struggling with that emotionally. Now, as parents, we don't want to see our children struggle and we don't want to see them hurt. And this is one of the hardest bits, and that's where we can take over.
Yeah, you want to go in quickly
Yeah,
rebuild
I'll fix it. I know what to do. I'll make it better, and then you won't be upset. A
Yes.
serve and return would, you know, our child might show that disappointment. My tower keeps falling over. This is really disappointing. And we might just pause, allowing that emotion, and
Yep.
then we might return serve. "Ah, your tower's falling over." So we're commenting on what's happening without
Yes.
fixing it, without solving it. We're just sort of allowing that to be. We allow our child then, before we say, well, I can fix it, I know what to do. Because
Yeah.
I do know what to do. I can fix the tower.
I can build a
I can
tower.
totally fix that tower. Instead of doing that, we're just pausing and we're allowing our child to maybe problem solve that solution. They might want to help. They might say, help mummy. And then we can say, oh yeah, I can help you. So that's fine. It's not that we don't help our child, it's that we're really trying to allow that beat for them to get there themselves, because often they've got the solution.
Yeah.
And they say, well, maybe if I build my tower on a different surface, it won't fall down. Or maybe, you know, it's about that.
They always want to do it in the different places, don't they?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, that's going to fall, but you're right. It's letting that happen. So that's how they learn cause and effect as well, I
Well,
guess.
that's
as well.
right. There's so much learning that's going on in just over and over having that tower fall, and there's that emotional regulation that they're developing, but then they're also developing those spatial skills and
Yes.
that awareness of even the maths skills
Yeah.
that kids are building when they are playing with Lego is incredible. And I think that's why it's such a great toy, is because we now know that you can get so much more
Yes.
in terms of our kids learning those spatial skills and those math skills and that kind of how things go together than we can by sitting and holding up those flashcards. Which,
Yes. And I know that we always talk about this. It's funny that we've partnered with Lego Duplo, because both Jen and I, previous to this this collaboration, used to talk about how even her 4 boys and my 3 kids,
Yeah.
when things go pear-shaped, or even just those moments where the family are together, it's usually around the bricks. It's everyone's there building.
That's right.
Yeah,
And I
it's-
think particularly Lego Duplo, because any age can join in, and even my much older
Yeah.
boys still love occasionally getting out the Lego Duplo and seeing how high they can build a tower.
I've seen your videos.
Yes.
They're always...
You know, and it is one of those things that it's collaborative, so it's so easy. Kids who are struggling with sharing, especially on play dates, you know, one of the biggest challenges parents often have on a play date is, you know, my child doesn't want to share. When we
yeah.
get out something that's like, you know, Lego, everybody can join in, and while we
Yes.
still may all want the same colour brick at the same time, you know, it is much easier to share than kind of a specific
specific
toy that can only be
toy,
in someone's
yeah.
hand, you know, and it can really allow for that group play and that collaborative play, which again is skills that our kids need practice with in order to sort of navigate those.
And let's face it, sorry,
Yeah,
cut you off. I was like, let's face it, in my head I'm going, it's actually therapeutic for me. I like getting down there and
It
building
is,
towers.
yes, it is, isn't it?
And we talked about a little bit about setting up those areas, and I know what it's like as a parent.
Yeah.
You can get really overwhelmed with having stuff all through the house, and when you look at those bricks you think, oh, not another thing. I have these fabulous little tubs and it sits under my son's bed. He loves it. He rummages through, and you know, he creates, and you know, it's never ending really. But I have actually learnt with little ones, as long as you have that where you say you're not overwhelming them with so many
Yes.
toys everywhere. Do you think it is about controlling the set of toys? Like you were saying, you said rotating.
Yeah.
I know I have a cupboard, I pack things up high and then I pull certain things out, because I think in a controlled environment they play differently.
Yeah, I mean, I think these days, because we have access to so much, and often what we know is that when kids are offered too many toys out at once, they get overwhelmed, and
Right.
almost their little brains get a little bit overwhelmed, and then they kind of don't know what to play with. And you can find that your child will just go from one thing to the next, and they're just dropping it, moving on to the next thing, but they're not getting engaged.
Yeah.
So in order to engage your children, I mean, one of the things I used to do, I would lay out a picnic rug on the
Yeah.
back deck, and I would take out, you know, it might be that you take out your big bucket of Lego, it might be that you take out some dinosaurs as well, and you might see what happens when we combine the Lego with the dinosaurs
Ooh.
on the back deck in the sunshine, or you might get a bucket of water outside and you might do it there. You know, it's about moving things around, and then afterwards, you know, one of the things that is good for our kids to learn is that ability to pack up. So we might say, you know...
Can you come over to my house, please? Because I'm really struggling with that one.
So am I. Yeah, it's easier said than done.
Well, actually, my elder two are at my mum's at the moment, and she just said they're playing so beautifully, and I'm just pulling one thing out at a time, and they're playing beautifully and packing it away. I thought, yeah,
I know.
I think you're watching, Mum, and I was like, that's easy for you. You're giving them time. I feel like I'm usually
rushing them,
Rushing
and
them.
just sort of we don't have the time to set it up. So when we do have the time, setting it up in that way, changing the environment, mixing up a few things can make a difference as well. And then stepping out of the way. Sometimes just seeing what they create and then coming in, remembering our kids, they really need to, in order to feel secure, they do need us checking in on them. So don't leave them too long without kind of noticing what they're doing and kind of, wow, that's amazing. Tell me more about that. And, you know, connection. When we talk about connecting with kids, and it can often get a bit confusing, how do we connect with kids? One of the biggest tips I would give is that you want to remain curious.
okay.
So praise is different to connection. So when we're praising our kids, it might sound like this: good job, you're amazing, you're so clever. You know, that kind of stuff is praise.
I'm very guilty of saying,
I
oh,
know.
look at you, you clever cookie. And
That's right.
Yeah, it's
The
hard to
problem
avoid.
with praise, I mean, praise, it's not that you can't praise, it's fine to
Okay.
praise. But a way that fosters more connection, makes our kids feel more seen, is when we either get curious, so we say, wow, how did you do that? Tell me more about that, or why did you pick that colour? Or, you know, those kinds of questions that we can do. And the other thing we can do is we try to commentate rather than adjudicate. So praise is, we're saying something's good or bad, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas commentating is more like, I just see what you're doing, or I've been noticing how focused you are when you play with those specific toys. You must really like them, or I notice you're so focused when you're drawing. I love watching how focused you are. When we're saying that, we are praising. I mean, we're saying, I love watching you draw.
Yeah.
But what we're noticing is the effort over the outcome.
Right.
And that really allows our kids to get more intrinsically motivated. And that again is going to build that ability to want to play independently. Because we're building that drive, like it feels so good, but it came within me. It was my drive, not the outcome as in what I achieved. Does that make sense?
Exactly, which is going to set them up for success when they get to school as well. I
Absolutely.
mean, that's such a huge gift you can give to a child. Now you did
Hard to do. I mean, I do say good boy
I
about
say-
1,000 times a day. I've got to
No.
confess.
We posted something the other day and someone made that comment on the clever, and I'm like, as a parent, it's really hard not to say
Yeah, we all do it.
clever, but at the same time, you're right, it's about the effort, it's not about the outcome, because
Yeah, so
Yeah.
what I do in my, because I say good boy and clever boy all the time, and then I catch myself, and then I think, just turn it into connection, and I quite simply go from that straight up praise
Yep.
into, how did that make you feel? You did it. You know, and that's a really different statement. And so don't worry if you go into praise, we all do it.
Yes.
But you can just flip it around in a split second by saying, tell me more, or how did that feel? Or, wow, I noticed how hard you tried at that. So they're the
Yes.
kind of things we can do to flip that kind of standard praise into something that's more connection building.
Absolutely. And it's so, I definitely see a change in my kids when I do show that interest and I do ask questions, because it was like, oh, you're actually spending the time to notice what I'm doing.
Oh, it makes
Not-
it just makes such a difference. And what happens for our children is they feel really seen.
Seen, yes.
And when
you're
they
so
feel
right.
seen, they feel centered, and then they go better, and then they play more independently. So
Yes, and we all want that. Like you say, it's
Yeah, we
those.
do.
It don't
Yeah.
expect it to come naturally, because they won't just all of a sudden be able to be put on the ground and play on their own. It does. Yeah, you're building up that resilience over that time, and that I guess confidence in themselves to be able to do that. Now, you mentioned something I do want to touch on. I'm going to throw you a curveball question.
yeah,
You
let's
mentioned
do it.
about, yes, when things go wrong, they get upset and they tantrum. It happens all the time, and not fixing it. But sometimes it's when there's others involved, siblings, friends, and they just don't know how to share. Yes, Lego Duplo bricks are a great way to share, but let's face it, sometimes they all want the one piece.
always in my house, always.
So I know that with the really young ones, they don't always know how to share. Do you have any tips on how we can help them navigate that stage?
I do.
I don't know you would.
do. Look, I think that sharing is a really tricky one, particularly on play dates where, you know, some parents might have a different approach to sharing.
Yes.
So my approach with sharing, and that, you know, it's sort of based in the evidence around what kids are capable of. So first of all, we need to know that little kids at 1 or 2 or 3 or even 4, they can't share.
No.
Okay? They cannot do that. So it's knowing it's not that my child is bad or wrong or naughty or I'm getting it wrong as a parent, that they struggle to share. They have this little brain that just sees what it wants, and they've got all these big emotions, same as us. I mean, we don't always want to share as well, but we've got all this fully formed brain. So we know how to regulate ourselves and do that sharing. They just don't have the capacity. So they are going to need some help.
Yeah.
The traditional way, or one way that parents might help, would be sort of stepping in and having a bit of a role where I might force some turn taking, or I might say you need to share. I don't do that. What I do instead is I do a bit of commentating on what's happening. So just say 2 kids are there in my living room, and it happens all the time, and they both want the same thing. I will come in and rather than say, don't do that, you share with him, I'm sick of you, whatever, I would say, wow, you both want
Can you see us there?
Yes,
Let's keep
go back.
going, Jen.
Okay.
We're back.
So we're talking about sharing, and 2 kids want the same thing, and I would say, wow, it seems like you both want that red brick. You both want that right now, and that's really hard. So you're acknowledging that it's hard. You might wonder out loud, I wonder what we can do. Now, in a situation where one child wants that and the other child already has it, I wouldn't force the other child to share. I would just simply commentate on what's happening for the child that's struggling, because I would just say, wow, this is really hard. Johnny has what you want, and it's really hard to wait.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be there to support my child with those emotions as they process that, and know that it's totally okay. If my child gets very unregulated and has a meltdown, I'm going to be there, and I'm going to give him a cuddle, I'm going to connect, and I'm going to hold space for those feelings.
Yes.
But I'm probably not going to try to fix it or solve it or take that brick off the other person.
And I think it's a very good point you make about being there with your child and accepting or supporting them through their emotions. I've had plenty of times. I have a child that does get dysregulated very frequently, and it's hard when other people don't understand and they expect you to correct or you to, you know, tell them they're being naughty or to tell them to shush or do this. And I think, you know, you have to block all of that out sometimes and just know that your child is doing their best. No child ever intends to be naughty or bad.
That's right. And in fact, when we come in with that kind of traditional approach where we might say that's wrong and you should know how to share, you should know better, you know, in a sense, our kids, when they're not feeling connected and seen and heard, they can't learn. So actually the only way to get our kids to do better, you know, ultimately we want to raise kids who can share, we want to raise kids who are compassionate and kind, and all of these things we're shooting for. Part of that's modelling, a lot of that's modelling, which is always like, oh, awkward, that's what we've got to do. But the other part is knowing that they will make those mistakes, and it's our job to sit with that emotion and hold space for that, and know that the correction is happening just by us sitting with them and not taking that toy off the other person, but sitting with that and being patient. And it is incredible how fast they can learn. And then we start, when we're doing that one, we're like, oh, 2 kids want the same thing, I wonder what we can do. Eventually kids will be like, well, maybe we could take turns. And they will come up with that. And it's an incredible thing when you see that in your house. It just takes a little bit of support from us and our ability to stay calm.
Actually, it's funny because I feel like my kids are better at school than they are at home with this, because when it's siblings, it's like everything's laid out on the table.
And that's probably all of us, everybody who's watching would feel the same. It's one of the most common questions I get from people when I'm doing a one-on-one session is, my child is an angel at daycare or at school or with friends, and then they come home and they are a nightmare.
Is it because they're comfortable in their environment, or is it because the boundaries are different at school and they're trying to, like it? Because my daughter, for example, you were saying about the idea, she said, oh, I wanted to do this and the other kid wanted to do that. I had this great suggestion, Mum, and we decided to mix our ideas and do a bit of both.
And you're thinking, oh my goodness, that's amazing.
But then
you can't do that with your brother.
You can't do that with your brother. It's like they want the same thing. It's all my ideas. No, I want my idea. And I just think, oh, I wonder if that is the fact that there's a certain expectation at school and trying to, I guess, there's rules and there's boundaries.
I think it's possibly that. I think the biggest impact impact is that, and actually I say to people, it's a really good sign if your child is being an absolute nightmare for you, because it means that you are their safe base, and they know that they can bring home. They've held it together. They've been that good kid that they know you want them to be, and they want to be at school, and it's been lots of school or at daycare or anywhere they've had to go. And that holding that together for, sometimes 8 hours at daycare, that's a really big ask. And so they sometimes just get in the car or they get near that sibling and it's all on because they're like, I can't hold this together anymore. So they've still got that brain that's not fully formed. But then also I think appreciating that we're meant to squabble with siblings. It's how we learn about conflict and negotiation. And this is a good thing. And this is where, again, as parents, we can step out of the way a little bit and just commentate like, wow, you guys are having a hard time with this. I wonder how you'll work it out. I can't wait to see. This is a really exciting opportunity.
Yeah.
I remember someone saying that to me, one of the biggest challenges parents have often in their parenting is siblings fighting.
Yes.
And we find it very heartbreaking because I think as parents, we want our kids to get on. We want them to love each other. It's one of the biggest things we want as parents. But actually, if we can view that, apart from core rules being broken, like no hitting or hurting and no damaging property, that it's okay for kids to squabble. And it'll be, with support, it's interesting to see how are you guys going to work this out.
Yes.
And
they feel like a team then. They're like, oh, we've got to work on this together.
Absolutely.
That's very good, Jen. I love those tips. I'm just going to take a look here at our list. So we spoke about independent play and setting the scene and changing things. And I did want to touch back on the fact that, these moments of time of connection don't always have to be, like you say, for the ones that are working, because I know it is really tricky. You're rushing through the routine in the morning. Too much pressure. I locked myself in the house this morning. Everything went pear-shaped and you could see my daughter was getting stressed as a result of me. What about those parents, I guess, that coming home at the end of a busy day, they've been at daycare, yes, they might be tired. I know that I've personally always found bath time really, really enjoyable because I've set it up that way with my kids. It's our time to talk about the day, connect. Obviously, we were playing with the Lego Duplo, fabulous new bath toy, which we love. Yeah, but what would you say in those moments? I mean, in terms of the routine of a working parent, it's flat out in the day, you don't have access, your kids at daycare. Is it about finding those 10 minutes of time and
I think it is. It's about knowing that it is quality over quantity. That there's so many different ways to parent and so many different ways to have that relationship, and that it's about grabbing that 10 minutes and maybe again for us busy parents it can be hard, but putting that phone down for that 10 minutes and thinking, I'm going to do bath time with 2 feet in, I'm going to join in with that imaginative play. And it's like we've talked about, it's that learning, there's learning that's happening, cause and effect, and water and all of those things are happening, but also water is soothing. It has a soporific effect. It brings on deeper sleep, which is a good thing for our kids. And knowing that rhythm and that routine is something we can join in, and it's a good place for our child to have that calm and connected moment. Also, often getting into the bath and getting out of the bath, they're going to be moments that kids have a harder time. That's that transition. Often kids don't want to get in the bath, and then they don't want to get out of the bath. But knowing that this is part of that essential expression of emotion, we know that kids are going to have to get some emotion out, and they're going to have to show us some emotion at some point through the day. So in some ways, if we can brace ourselves and expect that it doesn't have to look perfect all the time, that it's okay if there's a big meltdown getting in or out of the bath, and that maybe our child needs to have a bit of a cry. They've held it together at daycare all day, so you get that opportunity to have a cry, and then you might have a beautiful moment of connection that follows that in the bath, where you do play with them and you connect. But it does only have to be 10 minutes, and I think we can pressure ourselves for thinking it has to be all day long and I have to take my child to the zoo in order to connect. But actually, it can happen right there on the spot. You look in your child's eyes, and it might be at bath time, and you say, I love having this special time with you.
Yeah, gosh.
Just letting them know that moment is everything, I think, is so important.
Oh, absolutely. And I love what you said about that wind down and decompression, because when we think of play, we think it has to be fun and loud and rowdy. And I hope my husband's watching, because I always go to him, shh, tone it down a bit. Like, this is quiet time. But it is those moments, dimming lights. And, my kids are motivated usually in the mornings. They know that if they get ready for school or for daycare on time, then they'll have extra time to be able to play. And again, it's usually the Lego Duplo they're sitting around.
That's right, yeah.
But I think that I've built up to that over the years. Obviously, they're a little bit older, but again, for the younger ones, I feel like it is, setting it as part of your routine can also help, I guess.
Yeah, having that rhythm, and same with the independent play, doing that at the same time if you're sort of looking to boost that in your child. And then having a connection moment, you do a special time each day. You know, and it might be for you, it's bath time. You know, having that special little rhythm or routine. Our kids love rhythm and routine.
And partners love getting involved if they know, because
absolutely.
they don't often know how to fit into the whole routine.
Totally.
I always laugh about, I'm the one that's going, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, and then they get to be the fun ones. But it's nice for them to be involved.
Well, I think often dads are really good at that sort of fun play, and again with Lego and Lego Duplo, but they love getting in with the superheroes and, you know, kind of zooming around. And mums do play differently on the whole, but often we've got a different mental load.
Yeah. We have the ability, like we're thinking about 1,000,001 things often, and dads really...
So sometimes we feel less fun.
Yeah.
And it's because we've got this big to-do list, and I think go easy and be gentle on yourself as well. Like, again, no, it's just 10 minutes, and that we're just filling this little emotional cup with that, and you don't have to love it. Like, I don't always love playing with my kids, and that's
sometimes I think, God, can we just get to bed already? I'm so tired. Let's be real here, people. Like, we all have those days.
And I think if you kind of just think of it as, let's fully invest, even for 2 minutes. It doesn't even have to always be 10, but really invest and join in for 2 minutes and just fill that little emotional cup. And I think that can make such a big difference to the next step, which is probably bedtime.
Yeah. Exactly. And once they get used to that kind of cycle and that routine, it makes it so much easier because you've had that connection time and you haven't just been serving orders the whole time.
It does, yeah.
I wanted to touch on, Jen, obviously we're talking about imagination as well. So we've spoken about so many wonderful ways that you can play. What would you say to those people? I mean, we want to ignite the spark in our little ones' imagination, and we want them to get creative. But if you're not a creative person, it can sometimes feel impossible. And it's hard because sometimes you don't realise it's actually happening.
It's happening, yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing to do is trust that our kids innately know how to do this. And it's the same as the advice, you know, around a lot of things with parenting, where actually if we just sort of step out of the way, kids know often their own appetite when it comes to dinner. And kids know how to get imaginative if we get out of the way and don't take over too much. So sometimes when we're seeing, you know, if a parent is worried or wanting to boost that, the advice would be just do what we said earlier, which is set it up for success, make sure your child is, you know, fed and watered, and then just see what happens, you know, just again by adding an element or putting it out there and stepping out of the way, trying not to take over. Sometimes we can get to literal, we might be going, and how many bricks can you count? And if we instead can just sit back and let their little imaginations turn this into whatever.
I love the bath example you did in one of the videos recently about this bath. You know, we just see bubbles and we see water and we see this, but to them it's like an ocean and it's an adventure.
It's an adventure, absolutely. And, you know, what we can do is, you know, sometimes just commenting a little bit, but not too much. It's about giving just enough to allow, to support them in their journey. So we don't have to worry. If you don't feel super creative, I don't think that matters. I think it's about us just providing that environment and knowing it can happen, you know?
And what do you say then on things like spontaneity? Because I am known to throw a very last, like random, on the spot, let's put the music up and have a bit of a dance party. And it really shifts the mood of the house.
Gosh.
I think...
I did that last night.
Oh, did you? We're one and the same, I knew.
So absolutely, spontaneity for sure. So just shifting things up, doing your dance party, adding water, you know, especially in summer, you might just get the hose out and put it under the trampoline.
Oh, they think that's so fun.
Stuff like that. Anything you can do to shift things up can make a big difference. Even you might move where you have your, you know, your dinner time. You might take dinner out and have it as a picnic.
Yes,
you know, those kind of things can make a big difference.
Absolutely. I think sometimes we get so caught up in everything we have to do and the routine. And I think, you know, sleep is obviously important. And like you say, making sure they're well fed and they're well hydrated in order to. But I just feel like sometimes even for us, it feels very monotonous and it feels like you're doing the same thing every day. And I think, if you can break that up a little, it makes such a difference.
Definitely. Yeah.
So Jen, before we wrap up for today, do you have any other tips around play that you would love to share? That's a very broad question because I know that we've covered off so much already.
Okay, two main tips or two main thoughts I have around play. So number one, play is the work of childhood. So we really don't need to worry about teaching our kids, you know, to do their reading before school, you know, really allowing space and time for play is all the education that our kids need. And, you know, when we look at lots of other countries around the world, this is really what the evidence is showing, that it is all about this to make the biggest difference.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I'd say is that play is a fabulous way to connect with your kids. You know, we all want a great relationship with our kids. We want to make sure our kids feel loved, but knowing that, you know, we talk about love languages, we know that adults have 5 love languages.
Oh, I love your language stuff, actually. Yes, please.
So we know that adults have 5 love languages, and some of us like gifts, some of us like acts of service, some of us like physical affection, but for kids it's all connection. And connection is about showing them, you know, I want to be with you and I want to play with you and I want to get alongside you, you know. And so it is about sitting down on the floor and side by side doing that, you know, doing the play for 10 minutes. You know, I've got older boys, I've taken up basketball so I can shoot hoops with them, you know, and it's about
That's such a good mum. You're the fun mum. You are. I've even rung Jen before. She's got a house full of the boys and the neighbours' kids, and she's got food laid out. Oh, you sure you don't want to stay longer, Jimmy? And, you know, I just thought, I want to be Jen when I grow
Not
up.
always.
It's so lovely. I bet you are the mum that, yeah.
But definitely know that play is just, play is the work of childhood, and play is how we connect. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then
that would
one
be my 2
final
points.
thing that I love that you say, around connection. No, you do. I'm going to throw another one in there, because the simple moments of a high five, a wink, a touch, because I sometimes feel like if you haven't had that time to connect and play with them, and you taught me that, and I've done that from time to time with my son in particular.
That's amazing.
His little
impact.
face.
Yeah, they just think, oh, she loves me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can do that while your kids are playing. So another way to reassure them in terms of play, which is what we're talking about today, is you might just catch their eye and wink. You know,
Aww.
you might just wink, and they just go, oh, wow, she sees me, she sees what I'm doing, I'm seen and heard, and then they're able to keep playing, which is kind of the goal, you know?
Exactly. See, so many beautiful ways that you can introduce it into your day, and like Jen said, those little moments of connection and building that beautiful relationship, because these kids grow very, very fast. And I just love the fact that, you know, Lego Duplo, thank you again, our wonderful partners, because it really does create this beautiful space for our children to thrive and learn and grow, and it really does take them through to their years ahead, doesn't it?
Oh, it so does. It's the one toy we will never be getting rid of in our house, because I want to keep it for the grandkids.
I still have mine from when I was a kid, so there you go. So thank you everyone who came through and joined us today. As always, we will share a replay, because I know it's a really tricky thing to get the right time for everyone to join when it's live, but we know so many of you come back and watch this afterwards. So thanks again. Thank you, Jen.
My pleasure.
Sitting so nice and close with us here. If you have any questions at any time, send them through. We are always here to answer them, and I can't wait to hear how your little ones go in the wonderful world of play. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.